right, so we had a comment on one of our other YouTube videos, and I thought it would be very important to address this today because I think it's something that a lot of bowlers have issues with. Even at the highest of levels, I feel like this is a common issue that, you know, bowlers struggle with, which is when you tug the ball. We're talking about when the ball goes inside your launch angle or even at your break point from where you wanted to throw it. There's a lot of different reasons for this. So I think this is an important topic because it's not just one encompassing thing that could be causing it. There's a lot of different things that could be causing this. So today we're going to take you through a couple different scenarios of why this might be happening to you. So hopefully you can fix it.
I'm going to take you guys on the lanes and we're going to show you maybe a couple different things that you may be doing that results in tugging it and how we can fix it.
Okay, so we're on the lanes here at City View Lanes. Thank you to Josh and all their staff for taking care of us here. If you're in the Dallas or Arlington area, definitely come check out this beautiful center. They host a lot of PBA events, PWBA events, Storm, Youth Championships. There's a lot going on here and they love the sport and we always love coming back to Dallas to come here and visit.
Yes, beautiful center, 64 lanes straight across. Also the
home of the
Ballard's Bowling Academy is here, so thank you. And yeah, thank you for allowing us to practice on some of the patterns today.
Yep. All right, so the first thing, this is obviously something you want to do before you go to competition if you feel like you've been struggling and tugging the ball. First thing you want to do is go into your pro shop. You got to check your fit. Your fit is the #1 cause of why your release is not doing what you want to do.
Usually an improper fit consists of several different things. Your span can be too short, so that way you're gripping on it, or it could be too long. Your fingertips may not be all the way inside the finger grips, or you know, you're putting in about half your thumb, 3/4 of your thumb, and you're not putting in all the way, so that's causing extra grip pressure. So you want to make sure that you double check your span with your local pro shop.
But it can come down to now if your span is right, you just might not have enough tape in your ball, okay? You're going to tug the ball and I don't even just mean tape, if your thumb is not fit properly. There's different ways of fitting your thumb, obviously, because some of us are more flexible or not flexible. So that's another thing. You want to check with your pro shop to make sure you have the right oval, the right, you know, angle that your thumb is going in the ball, so that way when you do put your tape in or you are adjusting that your thumb is exiting properly.
And you also don't want your thumb hole to be too big. You also don't want it to be too small. You want it to feel like it's just right, and then you have a little bit of space to put your thumb in there comfortably, and then you could add some tape in there because your thumb is going to fluctuate whether you go into the same house that you bowl league every Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever the day you bowl, or if you're going across the country. I know that I always have to carry tape because the climate's different, outside temperature is different, inside the bowling center is different, so there's a lot of different variables that could come into play. So that's why I stress that tape is very important.
And now if you're someone who's like, I don't need tape, really, if you don't need tape and you bowl a lot of tournaments, you have to make sure you have a bunch of different thumbs. So if you really don't like the texture of tape, that is an option. You can only do this, obviously, if you have an interchangeable thumb. So you'd have to go into your pro shop and make sure you have about 3 or 4 different thumbs throughout the periods of bowling that you can change into, so that way you can have the same feel.
Yep.
And I think that's another thing that happens when you're bowling. People don't realize, you're like, oh, I was throwing it really good at the beginning of the tournament and I started tugging it. It could literally be because your thumb is just not fit properly anymore. Your thumb might have went down in size, your thumb might have went up in size. I know for me personally, there's plenty of tournaments that I'm like bowling really well and all of a sudden I'm just like tugging the ball, and it was just because I needed a piece of tape in the ball. And then I put that piece of tape in the ball and I was right back on track to where I needed to be. So that is definitely, I would say, probably one of the main contenders of why you're tugging the ball. Now, the other stuff we'll get into is a little less, but if you don't have the right fit, none of these other things that we're going to show you that could be the reason is going to help you at all either.
Absolutely. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to talk about is something that's physical game wise, and it would be considered early timing. So if you have early timing, 9 times out of 10, you're going to probably tug it. I could only speak on this because I can relate to it. When my timing was very early or I couldn't stop sliding, a lot of the shots went left because I could not stop myself and allow my shoulders to stay calm. So especially in the push away, if you take the first step and you push away before the second step happens, you're gonna end up with a lot of early timing, and that can hurt your repeat ability in shot making, because when you have early timing, your feet start to get a lot faster. It's harder for you to slow down. Everything has to come into an abrupt halt, so that's something that you want to avoid. An example of early timing, like I said, is going to be when you take the first step, if you're taking 5 steps, and then you're already letting it go before the second step hits the ground. So this is the proper way to have regular timing on a 5-step approach. My second step hit and then the ball went down versus taking the first step and then pushing the ball away before the second step even goes. For me, when I just did that early timing, my body lunged forward instead of staying put. So we're gonna do that again. Everything's going forward. The ball is taking me to go forward versus when I take the normal first 2 steps. See how everything is more calm? So that's something that you need to avoid. And the 4-step. It's really hard to have early timing in a 4-step because you have to push it on that first step. So that's proper timing right there. If you have the ball going before you even start, then your feet have to catch up. So now that we have proper timing, we want to make sure that our shoulders aren't closing down to the target. That causes a lot of misdirection. So when we're getting into that power step right here and the ball is coming down, we want to make sure that the shoulder stays back and it goes underneath versus we get into that power step right here and it goes this way. See how my head and chin went to the left and my right shoulder fired in front? Obviously that's going to change a lot of direction of what you're trying to do. And also that could be an alignment issue. I see a lot of the students that I teach, they stand on the big dot and they look at 10. Well, I take them to the foul line. I'm like, let's just pretend that you were to walk in a dead straight line and we were to end up on 20. Where is that mark? It's all the way to the right. So what does that do? Your arm goes away from you, your shoulder goes away from you, and it goes to the left and it shuts down your target. And a lot of the shots can end up inside or not actually what you're looking at. So we want to make sure that when we're going into the slide that our left arm is nice and strong going into the line and it stays right there. The shoulder stays there and the left shoulder stays in front and the right shoulder stays behind. So I'll show you guys a 1-step drill that really helps with calming down the shoulder and having proper timing. So as you can see on that one, my shoulder stayed nice back, left arm stayed really strong, and I came through it. I'll show you guys what you shouldn't do, and this is probably what you guys are doing if you're struggling with this. This is probably an example of what you guys are doing going into the 4-step into your slide. Everything is closing down. We don't want that to happen. We want to make sure that the arm swing is nice and free, the shoulder is staying back, and the left arm is staying strong through this position.
Okay, so along with the shoulder rotation, to be able to keep your shoulders open, you have to have that space to allow your shoulders to be open. And what I mean by this is your flat spot. So now the reason why the best players in the world are as good as they are is because we can do these things called foul line adjustments, which means they have this space in order to feel what is going on throughout their shot to be like, oh, okay, like I feel it a little bit early, and they have that space to kind of tuck their hand in and still get it in the right spot every time. The flat spot is from when your foot is in that power slide going into the actual slide and your ball is finally parallel to the ground. So that space between when it's parallel to the ground and when you get to the foul line is your flat spot. So obviously, if I'm coming to the line and I'm here and I'm coming with my ball and I'm coming through, if I only have from here to here, my shoulder can't go anywhere but here. I have no room. My hips are not wide enough. So now, if I give myself this much room, so when I'm coming here, now my shoulders can stay open longer because I have room for my ball. So when I get to here, now I have room to keep my shoulders open. So this is where I say, people say bowling's not a sport. Every time when you're doing a proper form, I know there are some people that struggle with injuries, but the more you can focus on this, the actual less you can prevent yourself from having injuries, which is why sliding is so important when it comes to that flat spot. Sliding or not sliding is not necessarily going to dictate whether you tug the ball, but it can be a reason why going into the line you have issues with your shoulders because your ball cannot get into that flat spot properly before you release. So as I said, if I'm here, I have no room. My shoulders can rotate. Now if I'm here, I have all the room to keep my shoulders open before I come here. Versus if I'm here, I have no room. So a good flat spot looks like a normal lunge. You want to let your hips go forward, not your shoulders. So if I'm here, I don't want to go into the line. I want to be here, and I want to let my hips move forward first and dig in with my foot and then go forward. You have to have a good foundation before you can get to the line. So we talked about a lot of things that are going to happen at the end of the approach. This is the one that it means the most before you get to that part of the approach. All right, so when I'm here, this is going to happen very quickly, so it's hard for a lot of people to see this happening. But it has to do a lot with your footwork too, which we will go into another video. But in order to create that spot where your shoulders are not going to turn, we have to be able to get the ball in line. We need the ball to be in a straight line from start to the end when I get to the approach. Now, in order to do that, I have to make sure that my feet and my body is not going into the projected line. So in order to do that, you need to make sure that when you're getting the ball into your swing, your foot is out of the way. So as you can see here, my body rotates away from the ball and creates a straight line. Whether you take a 4-step or a 5-step approach, you need to make sure that your first step in a 4-step or your second step in a 5-step is out of the way. So that way, throughout the entire approach, my ball stays here. A lot of people struggle because they're walking into their ball path. Then the ball has to go outside of your hip. Now when your ball goes outside of your hip, you're out of line. So if I go here, now the ball has to redirect and you're going to tug it. I think these things are very helpful and useful for you guys to figure out, why am I tugging it?
Yeah, so hopefully this video helps you guys today. We pointed out some of the key things that we notice in our games when it comes to tugging the bowling ball. When we're in those slumps, we're doing one of these things wrong. So hopefully we could pass on that information to you guys, and hopefully you could take it back to your coach or your pro shop operator, someone that you trust that could help you, and maybe we can fix one of your issues.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to try some of this stuff or look at the stuff when you're in competition, because there's nothing worse than looking back and feeling like, oh, I didn't, you just kept doing the same thing. So if you are bowling bad in competition or in league, don't just keep doing the same thing. Don't be afraid to start practicing some of these things while you're still in competition, because the best thing you can do for yourself is take it as a learning experience so it doesn't happen the next time you bowl. Yeah. And I think that's the problem, is some people are afraid to work on things while they're bowling. Now, I'm not saying don't go in and think I have to work on these things, but if something does start to happen while you're in competition, just sit down, write down, okay, what do I think is mentally going on right now? You have to break it down and figure out what you think is happening. So don't try doing all this at once. Break it down and be like, okay, maybe I'm not getting my ball in the right timing. Maybe now my swing is in the way of my feet. Maybe my flat spot's not where it needs to be. Break it down to make sure you know which one you're working on at the time, and don't do them all at once.
Yeah, I recommend obviously not doing this middle of the tournament, especially if you're bowling well. If you don't have the best tournament of your life, I think that is the best place to practice this. Like, let's say you're further in the standings, you just happen to look, today's not your day. I think that practicing it, especially in tournament competition when things aren't going well, can definitely help you progress faster, instead of just doing this at like your local home center where you're comfortable, bowling on the house shot, whatever. If some of those tournaments aren't going your way, I think it's the perfect time to practice something or to learn something new. So just take that going into consideration. Your next tournament that's not going so well, or your next practice session that you need to practice on something, hopefully this video helps.
And just remember, you can't practice it all at once. So definitely take each one of these things and try them separately and see which one works for you.
Yeah.
One might work better for you that might not work as well for your friend or someone else that you can show this video to. I know a lot of these things we've all both had to work on separately, but we definitely do not work on all of them together because you don't know which piece is going to help you the most in your game going forward.
Absolutely. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already.
Like and subscribe. Yeah, you don't like your friends if you don't like this video. Just saying, that's fine. Okay.